The alarm went off at 4:47 a.m. Not 4:45. Not 5 o'clock. 4:47 because that was the exact amount of time Maya Chen needed to shower, dress, make 2 lunches and be out the door before her daughters woke up and made leaving impossible. She had done the math 18 months ago, on a night she would rather forget, sitting on the bathroom floor of a 1-bedroom apartment that still smelled like her ex-husband's cologne. She had done the math and she had built a life out of it. Maya was 31 years old. She had 2 daughters. Lily, who was 6, and Cora, who was 4.5, and deeply committed to the opinion that every meal should contain exactly 0 vegetables. She had a studio apartment on the 3rd floor of a building where the elevator worked roughly 60% of the time. She had 2 jobs. The first was a bookkeeping position at a mid-sized property management firm on the 14th floor of a glass tower downtown, where she arrived before anyone else and left after most of them, quietly grateful that invisible work paid a consistent salary. The second was weekend shifts at a bakery 3 blocks from her apartment, where she learned early that the smell of bread at 5 a.m. was not romantic. It was just flour and exhaustion and a woman who needed the extra $400 a month to keep the lights on. She had no savings to speak of. She had a car with a cracked tail light she kept meaning to fix. She had a child-care arrangement held together with duct tape and the generosity of her neighbor, Mrs. Okafor, who was 72 years old and profoundly unimpressed by any man who had ever walked out on his family. "Your husband was a fool," Mrs. Okafor had said the first week, handing Maya a bowl of jollof rice through the doorway like it was the most normal thing in the world. Maya hadn't corrected her. Daniel hadn't been a fool exactly. He had just decided sometime around Cora's 2nd birthday that the life he had built with Maya was not the life he had meant to build. He had said it very calmly, sitting at their kitchen table with his hands folded, like he was delivering a business update. "I need something different," he had said. Something different had turned out to be a 26-year-old yoga instructor named Priya, and a studio apartment across town, and a child support arrangement that his lawyer had made very, very small. Maya did not hate Daniel. He had tried. She had wanted to. Hate would have been cleaner, simpler, something she could have gripped onto in the dark. But what she mostly felt was tired. Tired in a way that had moved past the body and settled somewhere deeper. The kind of tired that you carried into the shower with you and still had when you got out. She was running on 3 months of that tired the morning everything changed. It was a Tuesday in October. The kind of October morning where the sky is a flat, unconvincing gray and the wind has opinions about your coat. Maya was on her 3rd cup of coffee, which was itself a bad sign, because she had promised herself in January that she would stop doing that. She was staring at a spreadsheet that contained a discrepancy she could not find, the digital equivalent of a splinter you can feel but cannot see, when the email arrived. The subject line read, "All staff, urgent transition notice." She clicked on it. Read it. Read it again. Then she set her coffee down very carefully, the way you set things down when your hands have started to shake. Hartwell Property Management had been acquired. Effective immediately, all operations would be consolidated under Callaway Group Holdings. Effective immediately, all positions were under review. Effective immediately, a representative from Callaway Group would be on site within the week to begin the transition assessment. Maya closed the email. She opened her banking app. She had $412 in her checking account. She had a rent payment due in 11 days. She closed the banking app. She opened the spreadsheet. She found the discrepancy. It had been a transposition error in column G. A single digit flipped. The kind of mistake that meant nothing in a healthy company and everything in a company that had just been bought by someone who was looking for reasons to cut. She fixed it. She documented it. She flagged it in a report to her manager, who did not respond, because her manager was in a closed-door meeting that had been going for 2 hours. Then she did the rest of her work. Because that was what Maya Chen did. He did the work. His name was Marcus Callaway. And he was exactly what you would expect if you looked at those 2 words on a building placard and tried to imagine the person behind them. He was 38 years old. He was 6 feet and 2 inches of controlled stillness in a charcoal suit that had been made for his specific body by a tailor in Milan who charged more per jacket than Maya made in a month. He had dark eyes that did not move the way other people's eyes moved. Most people's eyes drift. They check exits. They track motion. They betray interest or discomfort or uncertainty. Marcus Calloway's eyes settled. They found the thing they were looking for and they stayed there, quiet and deliberate, until they had seen everything worth seeing. He had built Calloway Group from a single underperforming commercial property in Cincinnati, purchased at 24 with borrowed money and an amount of confidence that most people would have called reckless. Most people would have been wrong. By 32 he owned 11 properties across 5 states. By 36 the number was 43. By the morning he walked into Hartwell Property Management on a Tuesday in October, the number was closer to 90, and the acquisition of Hartwell was, by any objective measure, a minor footnote in a very busy quarter. He did not do these assessments himself as a rule. He had people for that. Good people, well-compensated people, people who understood exactly what he was looking for when he bought a company and began the process of deciding what stayed and what didn't. He had come to this one himself because of a conversation he'd had the week before with his CFO, a blunt Scottish woman named Fiona who had been with him for 6 years and who was the only person on his staff who spoke to him without visible anxiety. "The books are too clean," Fiona had said, dropping the Hartwell financials on his desk with the particular energy of someone delivering news they find personally offensive. "When books are this clean on a company that's been mismanaged this long, it means either someone's covering something up, or someone buried in the middle of that org chart is doing the work of 4 people and nobody upstairs has noticed." "Which do you think it is?" he had asked. Fiona had given him the look she reserved for questions she considered beneath his intelligence. "I think," she had said carefully, "that you should go see for yourself." So he went. He arrived at 7:15 a.m., which was 45 minutes before the official start of business and about 2 hours before most of the management team trickled in. The receptionist was not yet at her desk. The lobby was empty except for the hum of the HVAC system and the faint, distant sound of someone typing. Marcus followed the sound. It led him past the empty bullpen, past a row of dark offices, and around a corner to a small workstation near the window, where a woman in a gray cardigan sat with both hands on her keyboard, her eyes fixed on her monitor with the particular focus of someone who has been at this for a while and intends to be at it for a while longer. She had not heard him. She was working through what appeared to be, at a glance, a consolidated reconciliation report that should have taken a team of 2 most of the morning. She appeared to be doing it alone. Her coffee sat beside her keyboard, untouched, gone cold. Marcus stood there for approximately 30 seconds watching. Then he said, "That report is for the Q3 property ledger consolidation." It was not a question. The woman startled. Her hands lifted from the keyboard. She turned in her chair with the controlled speed of someone who has trained herself not to react visibly, which only made the brief flash of genuine surprise in her eyes more apparent. She looked at him. He looked at her. "Yes," she said. Her voice was steady. "It is. You're reconciling across 4 property accounts simultaneously." 3, she corrected. Then she caught herself. The 4th had a clean close. "I already filed it." Marcus said nothing. He pulled the empty chair from the adjacent workstation, turned it around and sat down. The woman blinked. "Can I help you?" she asked, in the careful tone of someone who has dealt with unexpected authority before and knows better than to be rude to it. "Probably not," he said. "I'm just going to watch." She stared at him. "Watch," she repeated. "Watch," he confirmed. "A beat." "I don't know who you are," she said. "I know," he said. "Another beat." "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." His name, as it turned out, became apparent about 40 minutes later when her manager, flushed, breathless, carrying a travel mug that he kept forgetting to drink from, came around the corner and stopped so abruptly he nearly spilled it. Mr. Calloway, the manager said. I didn't know you were. We weren't expecting you until Thursday. I can have the conference room. I'm fine here, Marcus said without looking up from the report he had at some point asked to look at and which Maya had after a moment of internal debate handed over. Her manager looked at her. She looked at her manager. Neither of them said anything. Continue, Marcus said, turning a page. So she did. Her name was Maya Chen. He found that out from the HR file which Fiona sent him at noon along with a message that read, found your anomaly. She's been flagging errors in the senior ledger for 8 months. Every flag was correct. Nobody acted on a single one. He read the file on his phone standing by the window of the conference room they'd finally moved him into. 31. Bookkeeper level 2. Salary that was, frankly, insulting relative to what she appeared to actually do. No disciplinary record. No complaints filed against her. 3 performance reviews, all rated meets expectations, which told him immediately that nobody had been paying close enough attention to write something accurate. He went back to her workstation at 2 p.m. He was still there. Her lunch, he noticed, was a container of leftover rice she ate with a plastic fork without looking away from her monitor. He sat down in the adjacent chair again. She did not startle this time. You've been flagging errors in the senior property ledger, he said. She was quiet for a moment. Yes, she said. Since February. March, she corrected. Then after a beat, the February ones I found in March. Retroactively. And nobody responded. She said nothing which was, he understood, itself an answer. Why didn't you escalate further? He asked. She turned to look at him then. Full on, the way she hadn't quite done that morning. Her eyes were dark and direct and carried the particular expression of a person who has asked themselves the same question many times and made peace with an answer they don't entirely like. I'm a level 2 bookkeeper, she said. My job is to flag. I flagged. What happens above that isn't. It wasn't my department. But you kept flagging. The errors kept appearing. He studied her. If I asked you to walk me through the full scope of what you found, he said, how long would that take? He thought about it. 2 hours, she said. Maybe 2.5 if you want the documentation trail. I want the documentation trail. She looked at him steadily. My daughters get out of school at 3:15, she said. I need to leave by 3. Not an apology. Not a request exactly. Just a fact, delivered with the quiet certainty of a woman who had made this particular calculation many times and was not in the habit of being ashamed of it. Something in Marcus Calloway's expression shifted. Barely. Almost imperceptible. Tomorrow morning, he said. 7 a.m. I'm here at 7 anyway, she said. I know, he said. She went back to her report. He stood up, straightened his jacket and walked back toward the conference room. He was almost around the corner when he heard it. He was on the phone. Her voice had dropped, the professional crispness softened into something different, something warmer and more exhausted at the same time. I know, Bug, she was saying very quietly. I know it's a long day. Mrs. Okafor said you could watch one more show. Just one. I'll be home by 5, I promise. Pause. Because Mommy has to work a little longer today. Another pause. I love you more. Tell Cora I love her more too. She hung up. She was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then she turned back to her monitor and kept working. Marcus stood around the corner where she couldn't see him, for a moment longer than was strictly necessary. Then he walked back to the conference room. Told Fiona. She's not a redundancy, he said before Fiona could speak. Fiona was quiet for a moment. I see you went. Run a full-scope comparison. I want to know what she's been doing versus what her job description says she's supposed to be doing. Already started it, Fiona said. It's a significant gap. I know, he said. He hung up. He stood at the window of the conference room for a moment, looking out at the gray October sky. He thought about a woman eating leftover rice at her desk at 2 in the afternoon, working through an error trail that her entire management chain had ignored for 8 months, and then going home to 2 little girls who needed her to be there by 5. He thought about the way she had said "my daughters" without softening it, without apologizing for it, without making it small. He went back to work. She was there at 6:52. Of course she was. He arrived at 7:01, which was the latest he had arrived anywhere in approximately 4 years. And she already had her documentation laid out across the conference table in a sequence that told him, before she said a single word, that she had organized this presentation the night before. After the phone call. After the 5 o'clock pickup. After dinner and whatever the evening looked like in a 1-bedroom apartment with a 6-year-old and a 4.5-year-old who had opinions about vegetables. She had come home, done all of that, and then sat down and organized an evidence trail for a man she had met yesterday morning. "You can sit," she said without looking up because she was still arranging something in the far corner of the table. He sat. He almost smiled. Almost. The next 2 hours were, Marcus would later think, the clearest professional conversation he had had in at least a year. She walked him through it without drama. Without inflation. Without the particular performance that people tended to adopt when they were presenting their own work to someone with power over their employment. She simply showed him what she had found. Inconsistencies in the senior ledger going back 14 months. Not fraud, she was careful and precise about that distinction, but a pattern of misclassification that had been compounding. Properties that should have been in one accounting category placed in another. Maintenance costs absorbed into capital expenditure lines. Small individually, devastating cumulatively. "This," she said, tapping a line in one of the middle documents, "is where it started to materially affect the quarterly projections." They were reporting a healthier margin than actually existed because the misclassification was masking the operating cost creep. "And you flagged this in March." "March 7th, she said. Then again in April. Then twice in June. "To your direct manager." "To my direct manager," she confirmed. "Who told me the senior team had reviewed it and it was within acceptable variance." "Was it?" She looked at him. "No," she said. "It wasn't." Marcus leaned back in his chair. He looked at the table. At the careful arrangement of documents. At the woman sitting across from him who had been doing the right thing, quietly, correctly, repeatedly for 8 months, while the people above her had done nothing. "What do you want?" he asked. She blinked. "I'm sorry. From this conversation. From this transition. From whatever comes next." He kept his eyes on her. "What do you want?" She was quiet for a moment. He could see her processing the question, turning it over, checking it for traps the way someone does when they have been caught off guard by unexpected things too many times. "I want to keep my job," she said finally. "I need to keep my job." "That's not the same thing as what you want." Another silence. Longer this time. "I want someone to actually use what I find," she said, and her voice had shifted just slightly. "Just enough. I'm good at this. I've been good at this for 3 years and nobody here has." She stopped. Pulled herself back. "I want my work to matter." The last 4 words landed in the room like something physical. Marcus said nothing for a moment. "It matters," he said. "It mattered before I got here. The fact that nobody told you that is a management failure, not a reflection of the work." She looked at him. He looked at her. Something moved across her face. Fast, guarded, gone almost before he could name it. He recognized it though. He had seen it before in people who had been doing excellent work in invisible places for too long. It was the look of someone being told for the first time that they were right. The transition assessment ran for 10 days. Maya kept coming in at 6:52. Marcus kept finding reasons to be in the same part of the office. He told himself it was because the documentation trail was still being processed, and she was the only one who could answer questions about it with any real precision. Which was true. He told himself it was professional interest in an unusually capable employee during a critical operational period. Which was also true. He did not examine the other part of it too carefully. On the 7th day she was on her lunch break. She had taken to eating in the small break room at the end of the hall, away from the bullpen, which he understood as the instinct of a private person in an office full of people watching to see who survived the transition. He was walking past the break room to get more coffee when he heard her voice through the half-open door. "Oh, careful." The sound of someone trying very hard to stay measured. "I understand that," she was saying. "But the payment arrangement we discussed." A pause. "I've been on time for 11 consecutive months. I haven't missed a single." Another pause longer. "I know rates adjusted. I'm asking if there's any flexibility in the timeline before the increase takes effect, because I have 2 children and a lease renewal coming and I need 30 days. Marcus stopped walking. He stood in the hallway, not deliberately listening but not moving either. He heard her exhale very quietly on the other side of the door. The specific exhale of someone who has just been told no in a way that dressed itself up as something more polite. "Okay," she said. Her voice had gone flat and controlled. "Thank you for your time." She hung up. A silence. Then very softly to no one, "Nobody wants a woman with 2 kids and no savon." Yes. She hadn't said it dramatically. She hadn't said it with self-pity or anger, or the performed despair of someone hoping to be overheard. She had said it the way you say something that you have simply, quietly accepted as true. The worst kind of thing to believe about yourself. The kind that has settled in so deep it doesn't even feel like a belief anymore. It just feels like a fact. Like the weather. Like a utility bill. Like something you build your plans around because it was there before you started planning. Marcus Calloway stood in the hallway for a moment. Then he pushed open the door. She was facing the window, both hands flat on the counter, her back to him. She heard him come in and straightened immediately, shoulders squaring, that guard coming up like a shutter. She turned around. She saw his face. He could tell she was calculating how much he had heard. "Mr. Calloway," she said. Steady. Professional. A woman who had spent 3 years learning to make herself unreadable when she needed to. "Whoever told you that," he said quietly, "was wrong." She blinked. "Nobody told me that," she said. You told yourself," he said. "Which is worse." A beat. Something flickered in her expression. Complicated and fast. "My financial situation isn't really relevant to the..." "I'm not talking about your financial situation." He crossed to the coffee machine. Poured a cup. Set it beside her on the counter without ceremony, because she had been standing there with no coffee and it was the middle of the afternoon and she had been working since 6:52 a.m. "I've spent a week reviewing what you've done in this department," he said, his back to her while he poured his own cup. "I've seen what you caught, what you documented, how you organized your findings." He turned. "Nobody who does what you've done is someone nobody wants." She stared at him. He held her gaze. "Then they haven't seen you work," he said. And it was not a dramatic declaration. Not a sweeping gesture. Not the kind of thing that announces itself. It was just the truth, said plainly by a man who had spent his entire professional life filtering out every other kind of noise. Maya picked up the coffee. Her hands, he noticed, were not quite steady. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was careful and quiet and contained something she was not quite letting out. He nodded. Picked up his own cup. Walked back toward the conference room. At the door he stopped. "The 30 days you asked for," he said without turning around. "Whatever the adjustment was. Is it a lease renewal issue?" She was quiet for a moment. "Student loan servicer. The rate changed." He said nothing. He walked back to the conference room. He called his personal financial administrator, a man named Gerald who had worked for him for 11 years and who understood without being told that certain calls were about solving problems and not about being asked questions. "Gerald," Marcus said, I need to know who services federal student loans and what the process is for a borrower requesting a hardship deferment. Gerald answered. Marcus listened. He did not call Maya back into the conference room. He did not tell her what he had done. He did not do anything that would make her feel like a problem he had solved rather than a person he had hurt. He filed the information away. And he waited. The transition assessment officially concluded on a Thursday. The announcement went out to all staff at 10 a.m. Callaway Group would be retaining the core Hartwell operations team. Several senior management positions were being eliminated. 2 departments were being restructured. The bookkeeping department was being upgraded. Effective immediately, the position of financial operations analyst was being created within the Callaway Group structure, reporting directly to the CFO. The new role carried a significantly different salary bracket and full benefits for the employee and dependents. Maya Chen was offered the position. She came to the conference room to tell him she needed time to think about it. He looked at her across the table and said, "That's reasonable." She looked at him like she had been expecting pushback and didn't know what to do with the absence of it. "It's a significant change," she said. "The scope is different. The reporting structure is different. I'd need to talk to your daughters," he said. "See how it affects the schedule. Run the numbers." She was quiet. "You already ran the numbers," he said. "Last night," she admitted. "And it would cover the loan adjustment," she said. "It would cover the childcare gap I've been carrying. It would cover." She stopped. Steadied herself. "It would change things." "Yes," he said. "That's why I need to think about it," she said. "When things change this much too fast, I've learned not to just." She looked at the table. "I've learned to be careful." He studied her for a moment. "What would make you less careful?" he asked. She looked up. "Proof," she said simply. "That it's real. That in 6 months it won't be." She caught herself again. "I've been disappointed by things that looked good on paper before." He nodded once. "The offer is in writing," he said. "Fiona can walk you through every clause. If there's anything that doesn't feel right, tell me and we'll change it." "You don't negotiate job offers," she said. "I do when the person I'm offering them to has earned more than the paper is currently saying." He took the job. She cried in her car afterward, alone with the windows up and the engine running in the parking garage on level 2. She didn't know that he walked past the parking garage on his way to a dinner meeting and happened to glance in. He saw the car. He saw the shape of her through the window, shoulders forward, head down. He kept walking. He gave her that. Some things a person needed to feel without an audience. It was a Friday, 3 weeks into the new role. The school had a professional development day. Mrs. Okafor had a doctor's appointment. Maya had a deliverable due by noon. She showed up at 7:30 a.m. with Lily on her left hand and Cora on her right, both of them in their winter coats, Cora wearing one pink boot and one purple boot because she had opinions about matching, and a backpack apiece stocked with snacks, books, and the quiet understanding that their mother was a person who sometimes had to do 2 things at once. She stopped at the entrance to the office. "I know this is not ideal," she said to Fiona, who was the first person she encountered. "I have no one to. Conference room B is empty," Fiona said, not missing a beat. "There's a whiteboard. They can draw." Lily looked at Cora. Cora had already located the whiteboard markers through the glass wall and was making her feelings about their accessibility very clear. Marcus arrived at 8. He walked past conference room B. He stopped. Through the glass he could see Maya at the far end of the table, laptop open, headphones in one ear, her eyes on a spreadsheet. And at the other end of the table, a 6-year-old was very seriously drawing what appeared to be a horse, and a 4.5-year-old was standing on the second rung of the whiteboard and writing her name in letters that were approximately 8 inches tall. Cora. With a backwards R. He stood at the glass for a moment. Maya looked up. Saw him. Something complicated moved across her face. She started to pull out her headphones. "I can explain, I just had no." "Is that a horse?" he asked, nodding toward Lily's drawing. Lily looked up. It's a dragon, she said, with the patient authority of someone correcting a very understandable mistake. It's an excellent dragon, he said. Lily considered this. Thank you. Do you work here? Yes, he said. Do you know my mom? Yes. She says this is a good job, Lily said, returning to her dragon. She said it before she thought we were asleep. Maya had gone very still. Marcus looked at her. She was looking at her laptop. Her ears were red. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. Walk me through the Meridian account, he said, as if none of the last 30 seconds had happened. She looked at him. Right now, she said. You've got a deliverable at noon, he said. We can get there faster if I'm reading the same numbers. She studied him for a long moment. Cora dropped a whiteboard marker on the floor and made a sound of profound betrayal. Without looking up from the laptop he was pulling toward himself to look at the screen, Marcus picked up the marker and held it out in Cora's direction. Cora took it, examined him with the frank, unfiltered scrutiny that only a 4.5-year-old can deploy, and then went back to her name. Maya watched all of this happen. Then she opened the Meridian account file. Okay, she said quietly. They worked until 11:40. He did not do anything obvious. That was the thing she noticed first. He did not ask her to dinner. He did not make comments about her appearance, which, given that most of the men who had shown any interest in her since the divorce had led with her appearance, felt significant in a way she couldn't quite name. He did not make her feel watched in the way that made her want to close doors. He made her feel seen, which was different, which was quieter, which was, she was coming to understand, considerably more dangerous. It was a Thursday evening in December, 2 months in. The office had mostly emptied. There was a company dinner that a significant portion of the staff had gone to. An end-of-quarter thing she had declined because Mrs. Okafor had mentioned her hip was acting up and Maya hadn't wanted to push it. She was finishing the year-end preliminary and she heard footsteps in the hallway and then they stopped. She looked up. Marcus was standing in the doorway of her office. She had an actual office now with a door which still felt slightly unreal, in his coat, which meant he had been on his way out. You didn't go to dinner, he said. Childcare, she said. He nodded. He didn't leave. She looked at him. Did you need something from me before you go? She asked. No, he said. And then after a moment, I wanted to ask you something. She set her pen down. Okay. He was quiet for a beat in the way he was sometimes quiet before he said something that mattered. The silence that wasn't empty but full. Is there anyone, he asked, taking care of you the way you take care of everything else? She looked at him. The question was so precise. So free of any kind of angle or agenda. Not are you seeing someone, not are you lonely, not any of the versions of that question that men typically use to open doors for themselves. Just, is anyone doing for you what you do for everyone around you? She felt something shift in her chest. Quiet and irreversible. No, she said. Not really. He nodded like he had known. You should let someone, he said. You're very good at accepting help when it's professional. When it's framed as a work transaction. But anything that looks like it might be personal. He paused. You go quiet. She stared at him. That's very specific, she said. I pay attention, he said simply. She was quiet for a moment. It's harder, she said finally. Personal. When it's personal, it can be taken away. Yes, he said. It can. And I have 2 people at home who need me to not be destroyed when things get taken away, she said. So I've learned to be careful about what I let matter. He looked at her for a long moment. That's wise, he said. And lonely. The word landed between them, clean and accurate. She didn't deny it. Yes, she said. It is. He straightened. Adjusted his coat. I'll let you finish, he said. He was almost to the elevator when she called down the hallway. Marcus. He stopped. She never called him Marcus. He turned. She was standing in her office doorway, arms crossed, the light behind her making her look smaller and more tired and somehow in that more real than anything. "Thank you," she said. "For paying attention." He held her gaze. "Thank you," he said, "for being worth paying attention to." He got in the elevator. She went back to her desk. She sat there for 3 minutes without opening her laptop, which was the most unproductive she had been at work in 2 months, and she did not feel the least bit bad about it. It happened in January. Cora got sick. Not mildly sick. Not the manageable, inconvenient kind of sick that meant a day at home and a lot of cartoons. The kind of sick that meant an urgent care visit at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday that turned into an ER transfer at midnight and a pediatric ward admission by 2 a.m. that revealed a respiratory infection that had taken hold faster than anyone had expected. Maya called Mrs. Okafor, who came and got Lily immediately, bless her, without being asked twice. She called in to work via email at 3 a.m., the way you send emails at 3 a.m., spare and functional without the ability to be anything more than that. She sat in a chair beside Cora's hospital bed, her daughter's hand in hers, watching the rise and fall of her small chest, and she held herself together with the specific discipline of a person who knows that falling apart right now is not an available option. At 7 a.m. she got a text from Fiona. "Take what you need. Work is covered." At 7:14 she got a text from a number she knew but wasn't expecting. "I'm downstairs. You don't have to come down. But I have coffee and a breakfast sandwich and I can leave them at the nurse's station if that's easier." She stared at the message for a long moment. "You don't have to, *, she started typing. She deleted it. She typed, *room 412. He came in without making it an event. He did not make the face people sometimes made when they walked into a pediatric hospital room. The braced, careful, looking for the right thing to say face. He just walked in. He set the coffee on the table beside her. He looked at Cora, asleep in the bed, her small face relaxed, her breathing even if still a little labored. "She looks like you," he said quietly. "When she's angry, at least." A startled sound came out of Maya, half laugh, half exhale. "She's relentless," Maya said. "She wants what she wants and she does not accept alternate proposals." "Sounds familiar," he said. He pulled the chair from the corner of the room. Not a chair that was positioned for visiting, a chair from the corner further away, the one nobody was using, and sat down. Not beside her. Not in her space. Just in the room. Just present. She didn't say anything for a long moment. "You didn't have to come," she said. "No," he agreed. "It's early." "I know. You have a board call at 8. Fiona will cover the first 20 minutes. She looked at him. "You're rescheduling a board call to sit in a hospital room," she said. "I'm rescheduling 20 minutes of a board call," he said, "to make sure you've eaten something because you've been here since midnight and I know how you work and I know that in a crisis you forget that you're a person who needs things too." Maya looked at the coffee. She looked at her daughter. She looked at Marcus Calloway, who had shown up at 7 in the morning on a Thursday in January with a breakfast sandwich and a chair from the corner and absolutely no agenda beyond making sure she had eaten something. "I keep waiting," she said very quietly, "for there to be a catch." He looked at her steadily. "I know," he said. "With Daniel, my ex, everything good had a bill attached to it," she said. "I've spent a year and a half learning to see the bill before I accept the thing." "That's a reasonable thing to learn," he said. "So what's the bill?" she asked. "With you. With all of this. What do you want from me?" He was quiet for a moment. Cora shifted in her sleep, made a small sound, settled. "I want you to stop believing what you said in the break room," he said. "That's all. That's the only thing I want." She stared at him. "That's not a transaction," she said. "No," he said. "It isn't. Yes," he said gently. "It is." She picked up the coffee. She drank it. It was hot and it was exactly how she took it, which she had never told him, which meant he had simply observed it at some point quietly the way he observed everything. She didn't remark on it. He just drank it. And the two of them sat in room 412 while the morning light came in through the hospital window and Cora breathed her labored but improving breaths and Marcus Calloway answered his emails and Maya Chen ate a breakfast sandwich and let herself, just this once, not be alone. Cora came home from the hospital on a Saturday. By Sunday she was sitting up demanding the specific television program about the animated dog that solved mysteries, which Maya took as an excellent prognostic indicator. By the following Friday things had returned to something resembling normal. The Friday after that Marcus asked if he could take them to dinner. Not Maya. All three of them. He said it in the hallway outside her office briefly without preamble, the way he tended to say things that mattered. You don't have to make it into anything, he said. It's dinner. Lily will ask you questions, Maya said. I expect she will. They won't be simple questions. She's 6, he said. How complicated can they? Last week she asked Mrs. Okafor whether birds experience grief, Maya said. A beat. I'll prepare, he said. Dinner was at a restaurant with paper tablecloths that you were supposed to draw on, because Maya had chosen it specifically, and Cora immediately began drawing a house with a very large sun and Lily began drawing what she called a scientific diagram of the ocean floor. Marcus ordered without looking at the prices which Maya clocked and deliberately did not think about. He asked Lily about the ocean diagram. Lily told him about anglerfish for 7 minutes without pausing. He listened without checking his phone. Cora fell asleep against Maya's arm before the food arrived, which was extremely on brand, and Marcus flagged down the server and very quietly asked for a to-go box for Cora's portion before it was even plated, which Maya also noted and also did not remark on. It was when they were waiting for the check that Lily looked at Marcus across the paper tablecloth, very seriously in the way she looked at things she had been thinking about for a while. Do you like my mom? She asked. Maya went very still. Marcus looked at Lily without flinching. Yes, he said. I do. Like a friend or different? Lily said. Lily, Maya started. It's a fair question, Marcus said. He looked at Lily. Different, he said. Lily considered this. My dad left, she said. Not accusatory. Just factual. The way her mother stated facts. I know, he said. That made my mom really sad. I know that too. She doesn't say it, Lily said, but I can tell because she gets a specific face. What kind of face? He asked. The one where she's not crying but she wants to, Lily said. She gets it sometimes when she thinks we're asleep. Maya was looking at the table. The check arrived. Marcus paid it before Maya could do anything about it. Lily colored a small section of the tablecloth in silence, apparently satisfied with the conversation. As they were getting their coats, Lily tugged Marcus's sleeve. He crouched down to her level. You should keep coming around, she said in the decisive tone of someone issuing an assessment rather than making a request. You make her face different. Different how? He asked. Lily thought about it. Like she remembered something good, she said. Marcus stood up. He looked at Maya. She was looking back at him with that expression he had come to recognize, the one where she was letting something through that she would usually keep very carefully behind the wall. Ready? He said. Yes, she said. He held the door. It was February when she said it. A Sunday. He had gotten into the habit of showing up on Sunday afternoons with no particular reason given, which Maya had initially met with her standard issue wariness and had eventually simply started expecting, quietly in the way you start expecting a good thing once you accept it might actually stay. The girls were at Daniel's for the weekend, which was infrequent enough to still feel strange, the apartment too quiet in a way that had stopped being peaceful and started being lonely. He brought food. He always brought food on Sundays, something specific, not generic takeout but things he had noticed. The dumplings from the place on 7th she had mentioned once in passing, or the exact brand of sparkling water that lived in her refrigerator. He paid attention. She had stopped being surprised by this and started being quietly undone by it. They were sitting on her couch, which was not the couch of someone who could currently afford a new couch. and she was telling him about a property analysis she had been working through, and he was listening, and at some point she realized she had turned to face him fully and he had done the same and the talking had stopped. Just stopped. The silence was not empty. It was the kind of silence that is made of everything that hasn't been said yet. "I'm scared," she said. Quietly. Directly. "I know," he said. "I was wrong about something before," she said. "That thing I said. In the break room." "You don't have to." "I do," she said. "Because I've been carrying it around like it's true and it keeps getting in the way of things that might actually be real." He was very still. "I think," she stopped. Steadied herself. "I think I've been so afraid of being too much that I started making myself smaller. And I don't want to do that anymore." "You were never too much," he said. "You were underseen." She looked at him. "There's a difference," he said, "between a person who is too much and a person who has been surrounded by people who couldn't see them clearly enough." She reached across and took his hand. Not dramatically. Not with ceremony. Just took his hand, the way you take something you have been wanting to pick up for a long time and have finally decided to stop talking yourself out of. He looked at their hands. Then he looked at her. "Lily says I make your face different," he said. "Lily is extremely perceptive," she said, "and I would appreciate it if you didn't use my 6-year-old as a tactical advantage." "Noted," he said. He laced his fingers through hers. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not as a vow. Not as a declaration. Just a fact stated in the same plain register he used for all facts that he considered important and settled." She believed him. Not because she was naive. Not because hope had overridden her judgment. Because she had spent 4 months watching this man, and she had learned that he said exactly what he meant, no more and no less. And what he meant was, "I'm not going anywhere." "Okay," she said. "Okay," he said. "Okay," she said. "I believe you." It was, she thought, possibly the bravest thing she had said since the day she sat in an empty apartment smelling like someone else's cologne and decided that the life ahead of her was going to be built differently. She had built it. One 447 alarm at a time. One ledger, one report, one flagged error at a time. One Tuesday morning with a stranger's chair pulled up beside her workstation, and the quiet, certain feeling of being seen for the first time in a very long time. She had built it. And now, sitting on a couch in February with a man who had shown up and stayed and paid attention and brought the right dumplings and listened to her daughter talk about anglerfish for 7 full minutes, she let herself stop building alone. Outside the window the city kept moving. Inside it was very quiet. The good kind. The alarm still went off at 4:47. Old habits. Except now when it went off, there was a hand that reached over and turned it off before she had to, and then a voice, still half asleep and entirely unbothered about it, that said, "You have 20 minutes. Stay." And sometimes she stayed. Not always. Not when the deliverable was urgent or the girls needed extra time. But sometimes. And sometimes was she had decided enough. More than enough. The kind of more than enough that you don't fully appreciate until you have spent long enough with not enough to know the difference in your bones. Cora had stopped wearing mismatched boots. She had moved on to mismatched socks, which Maya considered a reasonable escalation. Lily had started piano lessons which Marcus had arranged casually as if it were nothing, and which Lily had taken to with the absolute focus of a child who has found a thing that matches the shape of her brain. Mrs. Okafor had started joining them for Sunday dinners, which had become a thing. Maya's loan rate had been adjusted through a deferment application she had not filed herself, which she had discovered 3 months in and confronted Marcus about with a level of precision he had found entirely predictable and quietly admirable. "You had no right," she had said. "You needed 30 days, he had said. "That's not the point." "I know it isn't." She had stood there for a moment. "Don't do things without telling me," she had said finally. "Fair," he had said. She had nodded. She had let it go. Not because she had decided it was okay, but because she had decided he was the kind of person whose mistakes she could work with which was a very different thing from the kind of person whose mistakes she had to survive. On the 1-year anniversary of the first Tuesday in October, she found a card on her desk. No envelope. No name on the outside. Inside, in his handwriting, which was precise and angular and entirely him. Asterisk, the books were clean. That was the first thing I noticed. I never told you that it was you I came to see for myself. Asterisk. She sat at her desk for a moment, holding the card. Then she picked up her phone. He answered on the second ring. You came to see for yourself, she said. Fiona told me there was an anomaly, he said. I wanted to see what it was. And in it she heard everything he was not saying, the same way she had heard everything she was not saying for months before either of them said anything. And, he said, it turned out to be the most important thing in the building. She looked out her office window. 14 floors up, the city sprawled in every direction, vast and indifferent and entirely unaware that somewhere in a glass tower on an October morning, a woman with 2 daughters and a cracked tail light and $412 in her bank account had sat down at her desk at 6:52 a.m. and changed someone's life by simply doing her job. By simply being exactly who she was. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For noticing, she said. Always, he said. And she believed him. She built a life for her daughters out of discipline, sacrifice, and the quiet refusal to stop doing the right thing even when nobody was watching. And then someone watched. And everything changed. If Maya's story hit somewhere close to home, if you know what it feels like to be doing everything right and still feel invisible, hit that like button. Let us know you were here. Share this with the woman in your life who has been carrying too much alone for too long. The one who makes herself small so everyone else can have more room. She needs to hear this one. And drop a comment below. What was the moment that got you? Was it the break room? The hospital room? Lily saying, you make her face different? Tell us. We want to know. And if you haven't subscribed to Gabriella Single Mom yet, this is your sign. Because we make stories about real people, real weight, and the love that finds you when you finally stop believing you don't deserve it. We'll see you in the next one.